and welcome in this new tutorial in which I'm going to show you how to create these beautiful Halloween coffins. You can follow along by downloading the PDF with the list of material, the embroidery design and the size of the cards. The link is in the description below. But first, hi, I am Artist. Welcome in my little studio in which I create costumes, boxes and embroidery. The first thing that we need to do is to cut all the cards. If you are using my kit, you can skip this step because you have the cards already ready. But if you use your own mount board, this is how you need to do it. The coffin shaped card will be cut as a 90 degrees angle, and it's the same thing for the top and bottom edge of all the other cards. For the other bottom side, other top, bottom and top sides, we need to cut as a 40 degrees angle, 45 degrees angle on the sides. So, two ways of doing it. If you cut it with a cutter, for the other cards, you need to turn them upside down. So you will cut like this to have our angle there. For the inner cards, we will cut like this with the name of the card facing us. Now what I did is to cut all the cards at a 90 degrees angle with my laser cutter, and then I use the Dremel to sand them. So when you sand, you need to reverse the direction of the card. So for the inner cards, you need to sand like this with the name of the card facing down. And for the other card, you need to have the name facing you. The next thing we need to do is to cut our fabric. All the cards are cut the same way except for the outer lid. The outer lid we will deal with later because we need to do the embroidery on. So right now we'll cover all the other cards. I cut the cards from the orange and from the black fabric. What you can do is cut the orange only, build the inner box, and then before you build the outer box, you can cut the fabric. It's up to you. What you need to do is to leave a 1.5 2 centimeter seam allowance all around the cards, and that's it. Now that we have cut the fabric, I will show you how to cover the cards. For the double-sided tape method, we need, well, double-sided tape. Now here I have 1.5 centimeters. It is not recommended. I ordered it by mistake, so this is what I'm going to use. What you should use is something between 0.8 centimeter to 1.2. Usually I like 1 centimeter. I find it's the best. So the first thing that we are going to do is to apply our tape on the longest sides of the cards, always starting with the longest side. So when you have cards like this where it's more or less a square, it doesn't really matter, but when you have a big difference, it's better to start with the long sides. I cut as well in a 45 degrees angle. And I applied the tape 1 millimeter from the card, not right at the edge. If you hear some noise, it's my cat playing under the table. Then we remove the backing. And here I will leave the other side because our cards are pretty small and I have like a wide tape. Like that it's better, I can press the card and keep my hand on the backing of the tape so it's not sticky. Before we fold the fabric, we need to trim the corners. So I leave about 1 centimeter of fabric. And I will start folding. I try to pull as well on the sides to prevent wrinkles. I don't pull too much in that direction yet because otherwise it will distort the fabric. But for the second part, that's what we are going to do. So I will turn it because I find it easier, and I will start at one side, and here I'm pulling the fabric. So I pull like this, I keep my finger, and with that hand I pull in that direction, but I pull in that direction as well. Now what we want is something like this. So you have no wrinkles, the fabric is tight, maybe here a little bit. I will just remove it and redo it, just to make sure I have something really tight and clean. Yes, that is better. And now we will do the same thing for the smaller sides. First, we need to fold the corners. So with our nail, we will push the fabric there on the sides, and we will do the same here on the corner. And then we fold that bit here, pulling as much as we can. Same thing on the other side. First, on the corners, and then the excess. And we have our first card covered. Now we will do exactly the same for all the other cards. Now this shape is a little bit different, but it works more or less the same way. So first I will trim these corners here. And we will start with these edges here, the longest. I will remove both because I have enough place for my fingers. And I will start here. Now this time, because it's the first, I'm just pulling in that direction. You see, otherwise if I pull too much, the fabric moves, and that's not what we want. And now I will pull in this direction and in that direction as well. So I will start here, and I will work my way up. Checking if it's clean, and it is. Now we will do these edges there. I'm just going to fold that piece of fabric here, and I'm going to pull as hard as I can. And repeat the same thing on the other side. And finally, the small edges. Again, we start with the corners. and then the excess. And voila! Now that you've seen how to cover your cards, you can either cover all of them if you already have the fabric ready for the outer cards. If you don't, that's fine. You can just work first on the inner coffin and then do the same thing for the outer coffin. Remember that the only card that you do not cut and cover yet is the outer lid. We will do it after using the lacing method once we have done the embroidery. And now we will move on to building the inner coffin. If you can't see anymore the name for the top side and the top, it's easy to know which is which. So the top sides, they are both the same size. And the top is slightly smaller. So that's how you can differentiate them. To start building our coffin, we will work with the base and the top. When you sew the inner coffin, you need to remember that the fabric needs to be facing inside. So basically the way we build boxes or here the coffin, that we always have the outer and the inner part and we match them like this. So if you look at your box or at your coffin from the inside, you see clean fabric, and the same thing when you look at it from the outside. Before we start sewing, you need to take your curved needle and to thread a loop. Using a loop is always easier because like that the thread remains in the needle, so it's a lot easier. What I like to do as well is to close the loop with 2 or 3 knots. One is not enough because the eye of a curved needle is bigger than a standard needle, so it's better to do 2 or 3 knots. One thing to remember as well when we will stitch our cards together is not to sew too far from the edge, because you have the tape here. So if you touch the tape with your needle will be sticky. If that does happen, you can remove the glue, and I found that the best way to do it is with nail varnish remover. So we want to identify the bottom or the top edge, that doesn't matter in which direction it is, but we don't want to have the side, we want the bottom or top edge. If you don't remember the direction of the top side, it's okay, it's a square. First thing we will do is to insert our needle 1 centimeter or so, 1.5 from the corner, and we will exit at the corner. So that's where we will start, and we will do a couple of secure stitches. We will sew the box like this. So when we look at it, this time we have the ugly sides facing us. And we will start sewing using the ladder stitch. What we want is to have stitches that are 2 to 3 millimeters long, and the way we stitch the cards, so we want to stitch on the edge. So we have this edge here and this one there. Once again, not here further from the edge, because otherwise we will glue our needle, and we will place the top on top of the base. Basically, when the box is on the table, both sides, the base and the bottom edge, will be touching the table. So we want this, we do not want that. What I like to do is to do a couple of stitches, and then I will pull the thread to tighten everything. We need everything to be very tight. We don't want the cards moving. We don't want to see the light through the stitches. So we stitch all the way to the corner. And what I like to do to finish is to go back in the opposite direction and to do another couple of stitches. So here this card is pretty small, so I might do all. And that way it is more tight and it is more secure, it's better. For the first card, I will go all the way to the other corner. And then I will go back again. It's really because it's the first and it's small. For the other cards, I finished my thread before. Okay. And I will do 2 or 3 secure stitches. And then we can cut our thread. And now we will attach the top side. We will start at the top corner, go down, and then we will stitch along the base. So here it's going to look like this. And what I like to do is to measure. So I have a length of thread that will allow me to cover everything, to stitch everything. And what I do, I always take a little bit of extra and then I double the thread to be able to make a loop. I have already started my thread here on the top corner of the top card, and I will add the side top. So the sides here will be touching, and then the bottom edge will be sewn to the base. Because of the shape of the coffin, it will be a little bit of a struggle at the beginning to hold all the cards together. So to start, we will just hold the cards like that with our fingers, and when possible, I will hold the card close to my chest to prevent them from moving. And here, to finish my thread, I will go back in the other direction. This time I will just do a couple of stitches. Whenever possible, and when I can't place the box or the thing that I'm working on the table, what I like to do is to hold it against my chest. Like that, I find it's a lot easier to stitch. At least it's not moving around anymore. You can have a better hold of it. When you are done stitching the top sides, you can stitch the bottom sides the same way. You start at the corner, you go down the base and then along the base. The bottom sides are slightly longer than the base, and this is normal. It's because we are going to squeeze in our bottom cards after. So I will finish stitching this card and I will see you when you're done. Our inner coffin is done and it's looking pretty cool. Now what we need to do is to build the outer coffin around the inner one. So if you haven't prepared the cards for the outer coffin, it is time to do it now, so you can pause the video and then continue once you have the cards ready. if you do have the cards ready already, we will start building the outer coffin exactly the same way as we did for the inner one. So we will take our base and we will take our top card. The difference is the direction of the cards. So when we covered our inner coffin, we worked like this. Now we work like that. So yeah, with my black t-shirt, it's not easy to see. This time, when we look at the card, we have the fabric here on the right side for me, and we see as well the fabric on the top. So we will sew it the same way as we did for the inner coffin, the base with the top, and then we will sew one of the top sides, and I will see you again when this is done. Something I forgot to mention. This time our top is not a square, so you really need to identify the top or bottom edge. And if you can't see anymore what is written, just place the edge on the bottom and you will see here I have the bottom edge, so they are matching. Otherwise the other side is a little bit smaller. What you can do also is to take another card, like for example this side, and I will put it here so you can see it won't be against the color of my t-shirt. So they have, when I place both cards next to each other, here they have the same height, so I know that I have the bottom and the top edge. Otherwise, if I align the bottom edge, I will be able to see the edge of the other edge of the top card that is bigger. So that's why I know these are the sides and these are the top and bottom edge. Now that we have two sides of the coffin stitched onto the base, we will continue working on our outer coffin, but from now on we will have the inner coffin inside it. Like that, we'll make sure that everything is really squeezed and tight, and we will continue the same way as we did for the inner coffin. So first with the second top side, then we will work on the bottom sides and on the bottom. Something that I like to do to make sure that the top edge of the outer coffin and of the inner coffin are on the same level is to hold the coffin on the table as I stitch. So like that I can really press on the outer coffin to make sure that the inner coffin is really inside it. Our coffin is almost done now, and the only thing that we still have to do is to sew the outer and inner top edge together. Coffin ready, now we just need to work on the lid. I will let you work on the embroidery of your lid based on the design that you chose, and then I will show you how to attach the embroidery to the outer lid. I'll show you the preparation using clips from different designs. The process is the same for all of them. First, check the size of the 5 cm square on your print. If it really measures 5 cm, you're fine. If not, your embroidery might end up too small or not fit the outer lid. Place the water-soluble paper on your fabric. Frame them together in the hoop. Slide the design between the fabric and the paper and trace it. I used a black pen, not always easy on dark fabric. You could try a white one, but test first. Mine was too wet, it melted the paper. Don't forget the dotted coffin outline. Once your design is transferred, remove the paper. If you want, sew the water-soluble paper edges to the fabric with herringbone stitch. that keeps it tight and make your embroidery cleaner. For the stitches, you can use 1 or 2 strands of DMC cotton. 2 strands, thicker and faster, 1 strand, finer, smoother. For these designs, I recommend 2. Always start with the outline. To avoid knots under the fabric, bring your thread up on the line, make 2 tiny stitches, start your embroidery, and then cut away the knot. For the dotted outline, I use a back stitch. You can experiment with other stitches if you want. I have a video here with 12 different outline stitches. Make a stitch, move forward a couple millimeters, and bring the needle down at the end of the previous stitch. To finish a thread, hide 2 tiny stitches under the back stitch, then cut. For the haunted house, I used stem stitch. Bring your needle up, then 3 or 4 millimeters forward, leave a small loop. If you're stitching away from you, loop on the right. If you're stitching toward you, loop on the left. I like to stitch toward me, so you will see me rotate the hoop quite often. Bring the needle up in the middle of the previous stitch, pull through, and repeat. For the windows, grass and bats, just fill with simple straight stitches. When you're done, unframe the embroidery, rinse with water to dissolve the paper. I only filmed this step for the ghost and pumpkin, but it's the same for all of them. And to dry it, sandwich it between towels and keep it flat. Yes, this is the skull. I just didn't record the outline, so you're seeing the footage from the haunted house. For the stitches, you can use 1 or 2 strands of DMC cotton. 2 strands, thicker and faster, 1 strand, finer, smoother. If you want to compare, I used 1 strand to make the skull design and 2 strands for the ghost and pumpkin. Always start with the outline. To avoid knots under the fabric, bring your thread up on the line, make 2 tiny stitches, start your embroidery, and then cut away the knot. For the dotted outline, I use a back stitch. You can experiment with other stitches if you want. I have a video here with 12 different outline stitches. Make a stitch, move forward a couple millimeters, and bring the needle down at the end of the previous stitch. To finish a thread, hide 2 tiny stitches under the back stitch, then cut. I drew a few guidelines just to help with the stitch direction. I use satin stitch for the lettering and curves. Basically, you just run your thread from one side of the letter outline to the other. I did the same thing for the curves. First I drew the line to guide the direction of the stitch, and then I use a satin stitch to cover the whole area. For the ghost outline, I used split stitch everywhere except for the middle section between the arms. Split stitch gives a neat line. Make a stitch, then bring the needle up in the middle of that stitch and take it down a bit further along the line. Try to keep your stitch length even. I filled the ghost with long and short stitches. By alternating stitch length, you avoid harsh lines. Pay attention to stitch direction. For the first row, bring the needle up from inside the shape and down just outside the outline. From the second row onward, bring the needle up into the previous row, catching a thread is fine, and down in an uncovered area. When you're done, unframe the embroidery, rinse with water to dissolve the paper, and to dry it, sandwich it between towels and keep it flat. Yes, this is the pumpkin. I just didn't record the outline, so you're seeing footage from the haunted house. For the stitches, you can use 1 or 2 strands of DMC cotton. 2 strands, thicker and faster, 1 strand, finer, smoother. If you want to compare, I used 1 strand to make the skull design and 2 strands for the ghost and pumpkin. Always start with the outline. To avoid knots under the fabric, bring your thread up on the line, make 2 tiny stitches, start your embroidery, and then cut away the knot. For the dotted outline, I use a back stitch. You can experiment with other stitches if you want. I have a video here with 12 different outline stitches. Make a stitch, move forward a couple millimeters, and bring the needle down at the end of the previous stitch. To finish a thread, hide 2 tiny stitches under the back stitch, then cut. For the pumpkin, I actually started filling first, but it's better if you start with the outline. I used long and short stitches to fill in the pumpkin. The trick is to keep your stitches irregular, some long, some short. That way you don't get harsh line. Pay attention to the direction. Your embroidery will look softer if the stitches follow the shape. You can draw guidelines if it helps. For the first row, bring the needle up from inside the shape and down just outside the outline. From the second row onward, bring the needle up into the previous row, catching a thread is fine, and down in an uncovered area. For the stem, I used satin stitch in the middle. Basically, you just run your thread from one side of the letter outline to the other. And stem stitch for the wiggly parts. Bring your needle up, then 3 or 4 millimeters forward, leave a small loop. If you're stitching away from you, loop on the right. If you're stitching toward you, loop on the left. Bring the needle up in the middle of the previous stitch, pull through, and repeat. When you're done, unframe the embroidery, rinse with water to dissolve the paper, and to dry it, sandwich it between towels and keep it flat. Yes, this is the skull. I just didn't record the outline, so you're seeing footage from the haunted house. For the stitches, you can use 1 or 2 strands of DMC cotton. 2 strands, thicker and faster, 1 strand, finer, smoother. If you want to compare, I used 1 strand to make the skull design and 2 strands for the ghost and pumpkin. Always start with the outline. To avoid knots under the fabric, bring your thread up on the line, make 2 tiny stitches, start your embroidery, and then cut away the knot. For the dotted outline, I use a back stitch. You can experiment with other stitches if you want. I have a video here with 12 different outline stitches. Make a stitch, move forward a couple millimeters, and bring the needle down at the end of the previous stitch. To finish a thread, hide 2 tiny stitches under the back stitch, then cut. For the letters, I use satin stitch. Just run the thread from one side of the shape to the other. You can draw guidelines if it helps. For the skull itself, I fill it with long and short stitches. The trick is to keep your stitches irregular, some long, some short. That way you don't get harsh line. Pay attention to the direction. Your embroidery will look softer if the stitches follow the shape. You can draw guidelines if it helps. For the first row, bring the needle up from inside the shape and down just outside the outline. From the second row onward, bring the needle up into the previous row, catching a thread is fine, and down in an uncovered area. Before you cover the lid with your embroidery, I recommend that you iron the embroidery. Now you can do it on the wrong side of the fabric with temperature for normal cotton, and when you're done, I will show you how to cover the card using the lacing method. I will demonstrate on the skull, but obviously it will work exactly the same way if you have chosen another design. The first thing that we will do is place our outer lid on top of the card, trying to find the right placement, and then we will cut 2 centimeters around it. If you are scared and don't want to mess up, you can do a little bit more, like 3 centimeters. It's always better to cut less at the beginning and then cut more after than cut too much right away and then not have enough fabric to work on the lacing method. Now, what I like to do is to place the fabric on top of the lid, and it's even better if you have some light or a window. I will turn on the light here so you can see. So with the light here, I can see the edge of my card and it's easier to place the design. To secure the fabric in place, we will put some pins all around. So first I will do 1 pin in the center of each edge. I will check to see if I'm happy with the placement, and I am. So now I will secure completely by placing pins all around the card. When we are done putting our pins, we will start folding the corners. and we will maintain them with a pin. I will do the same thing here as well. And now we will stitch the 6 corners. So I will start with this corner, but it doesn't matter which one you start with. And I will do ladder stitch as well from one side to the other. Trying to get as close to the point as possible. And I will finish my thread with 2 or 3 secure stitches. And we need to repeat the same process for all the corners. To do the lacing, we will take our buttonhole thread and we will take a good length of thread, but we will not cut it. We will just thread it on one side, and here what I like to do is to hold the thread in my hand, otherwise it might loop around the needles. What you can do, if you prefer, is to have a sheet of paper, for example, and to place it like that on top of the pins, so the pins don't bother you when you do the lacing. So we will first lace the long sides, and I will take the needle through the fabric on one side. So the first time I go under the fabric, and the second time I will go from above it. And I will keep doing my lacing like this. Don't worry if it's not really pulled tight at the beginning, that's fine, we will tighten everything later. If you run out of thread, like I will soon do, take more of your thread And we will just pull like this to have more length on the other end. Now, as I come close to the end, I tighten a little bit more, just because I know I will have enough thread to finish. And we will finish our thread with a couple of secured stitches. And now we will pull everything to tighten the lacing. Now we cut my thread and I will finish it with secured stitches. We can remove the pins along these edges. And we will repeat the same process here. Now I'll do my secure stitches here and I will tighten everything as I secure the other end. And we have our card that is covered with our embroidery. What we want to do now is to place our outer and inner leads together, and we will sew all around the edges. Now you can either leave the lid like this and just close your coffin and open it like that, or you can sew one edge. I like to do it on the left side of the bottom side, but you can do it on the right one if you prefer, up to you. So we just sew one edge here and that's it, our box is finished. Congratulations on making this beautiful Halloween coffin. I am looking forward to seeing yours, so please share it on the Facebook group, the Artist Salander Creative Circle, or on social media with the hashtag MyArtistSalanderCreation. I have more boxes patterns coming. The next one will be this beautiful drawer box, but I will have more designs such as 3D embroidery, dragon scale smoking pattern, so a lot of cool stuff are coming your way. If you don't want to miss out, you can subscribe to the channel or sign up to my newsletter at artistsalander.eu. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.